Hello everyone, it's been a while. So today, to a lot of people's surprise, there was a balance patch in Korea, and in that balance patch, they made some major changes to Sorceress. So I thought I'd make a quick video to talk about the changes and what this means for the class going forward. So to start off, they just gave every skill 10% more gauge generation. So this is great for both Reflux, who will now have more blinks, and Igniter, who will be able to generate more gauge, or ignites. They then changed Inferno. If you've never seen the Inferno skill, it's the skill that looks like this. It's that Pillar of Fire skill. So they increased its damage, they made it cost less mana, they increased its gauge generation on top of the global gauge generation we already had, and reduced its cooldown. So what this basically means is that I think Smilegate is trying to get us to use Inferno in Igniter just for better utility, so better stagger, better destruction, better gauge generation, and so on and so forth. They then made some changes to tripods. So there was a tripod to make the cast time longer but increase its damage. They removed that cast delay and just gave it the damage, so that's nice. So right now, what it looks like when you equip that tripod, this firepower expansion one, this is how the animation looks like now, and this is with full yearning. Quite slow, as you can see. So now it's the same speed as the old one without the, slowed down speed. The other tripod they changed was the quick cast one. So this one increases the increases the speed rather. So it looks like this. Very fast and very quick. And so due to that, you can see that they just gave it about 30% more damage on top of the 50% that it currently has. So overall, they're just trying to make the skill do a little bit more damage and give it more meter generation, as in, sparkly alternative to some other skills that might slot into Igniter. So, cool. Okay. Moving along, we now have Doomsday. Oh boy, here we go. So first of all, a cooldown change of 2 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually a lot. It makes landing your second Doomsday a lot easier, so that's great. And your time to ignite on the next cycle is also shorter, so great. Its mana consumption has been reduced by 3.2%, so for hallucination enjoyers, you don't have to worry about mana as much. Attack range increased by 10%, that's great. And now here's some big changes. The time until the meteorite falls after casting is completed has been reduced. And from what I've seen, it's reduced a significant amount. For reference, in current servers, this is how slow it falls. My god, that's just... it just takes forever. So that does allow some cool tech from our side. We can do like Doomsday into Rhyme Arrow cancels and then ignite. So that's always been kind of a cool thing. But with this new change, if you see the changes on any Korean website, you don't even have the time to buffer any skill before Doomsday lands. So you're literally just going to Doomsday, and you're going to immediately ignite after that. Doomsday, and immediately ignite after that. And from what I've seen, the window is actually surprisingly tight. So you can't do that tech where you might Doomsday, reposition and then ignite, right? You can't really do that anymore. You have to just stand still and finish the Doomsday into Z. So this also means that you can't fit as many skills into Igniter, but they did compensate for that, as we'll see in the patch here. So the timing of movement and skill cancellation after using a skill has been changed to be faster. Great. That still doesn't mean you can cancel it. And they increased the Flame Zone tripod. So if you don't know what this tripod is, it currently makes Doomsday fall faster. So if I were to switch it to Flame Area, right? I'll show you how fast it falls. Pretty fast, and it falls diagonally, right? So that's like the speed of the new Doomsday. Even faster, I'd have to argue. And so they took away that extra speed that you get from this, And from there, they just added more damage. To the point where it's actually stronger than your current tripod. So if you look at the current tripod for Doomsday, Asteroid, this gives 50%. This will now give 54.9%. So a little bit interesting, even though the boss has to stand still for those 3 seconds where the fire zone does appear. It could be a viable tripod now. And from what I've seen, it still falls faster, even though it says that it doesn't increase the speed of the meteor. I don't know, maybe it's just an animation change or whatever, but it does feel faster still. Maybe that's just a bug. But this might be the tripod going forward, who knows. So if you have any tripods for Flame Zone, you might want to level it up. And then for Magic Amplification, this is your tripod that just increases the damage of the skill overall. Just basic 4%, so it works out to about 3%. So that's how they're, I'm guessing, trying to make up for that loss of an extra skill within Igniter. They're just trying to make your big spells do more damage. This follows for both Punishing Strike. You can see that there's the 24% again, and Explosion with 24% again. Now here's another big change with Reverse Gravity. They actually reduced the gauge gain by 22.7%. So overall, if you include the 10% buff and the 22% nerf, overall Reverse Gravity doesn't generate much gauge at all anymore. Furthermore, they also got rid of Quick Prep, where you used to get 6 seconds off the cooldown, and now it just increases the stagger level to mid. And finally, the last tripod, Legacy of Killers, which is a terrible translation. What this tripod actually is on Reverse Gravity, you have this Law of the Jungle tripod. That's a Chaos Dungeon tripod. You can see that it does damage to challenge or lower foes only. They changed that tripod to do just raw 213.9% damage, but you don't get any identity gauge. So what this effectively does is it makes Reverse Gravity a really poor choice for Igniter now. It might still be viable, but given their direction with these changes, I think they're trying to push you away from Reverse Gravity and more towards skills like Inferno. That's why they're buffing those skills and nerfing these skills. And I know there's a lot of you out there who really like the Reverse Gravity, Nightmare Igniter where you're cycling Boundless and things like that. And from what I've seen, it's still possible for that playstyle to exist. You simply just replace Reverse Gravity with Inferno. And with the mana changes, it's a little bit more difficult to do it, but it's still possible. So let's hope our friends in Korea cook up some nice builds that we can still use, and I'm pretty hopeful about that. And let's be honest, who likes Reverse Gravity as a skill? Right? If you do, you're weird. I'm just gonna put it out there, man. I do not like the skill. I play both Reflux and Igniter, and I hate the skill on both. But here's the interesting thing. Reverse Gravity, as you know, or maybe don't know, is one of our best skills, like top 3 in Reflux. And so with this change, while we lose 6-second cooldown on the tripod, it does significantly more damage now, 214%, compared to the tripod that we use right now, which is weak point detection, which only gives a measly 96. And so from what I've seen on Inven, it turns out that this is actually a Reflux buff. People have reported higher Trixian numbers and less stress in pressing Reverse Gravity so often. While you won't press it as often, each cast will do that much more damage. And it's quite a big increase from 96% to basically 214%. Now the biggest concern here is about Boundless MP. You're going to say, oh well, Reflux is all about maintaining Boundless MP, and if you take away our cooldown on one of our most important skills, then we won't be able to manage it as much. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. We're going to spend slightly less time in Boundless MP, slightly more time in Mana Addiction. We're going to have more upfront damage, but probably our, damage over time is going to be a little bit less. It's going to be a little bit more bursty, if you will. Overall, I see this as a good change. It's exhausting to have to constantly land reverse gravity on reflux, and if this change means I can chill a little bit, be a little bit more mindful of where I place the skill, like I do with Esoteric Reaction or Rhyme Arrow, I see it as a positive. Alright, next up, they changed our awakening, specifically the second awakening, the Meteor one. So for those of you who don't know again, that's this awakening, where you just press it and it covers the entire field in meteors as such. So you can see that the meteors are just covering the entire screen and there's no real rhyme or reason, it just kind of evenly spreads out and I barely hit the boss. So they're changing it to make it an indicator like this, where when you press it, it's only going to land meteors within that area. I'm using Doomsday as an example here, but you get the idea. So, I mean, that's nice and all. I guess I can have a slightly better burst with Atropine as Reflux, and maybe Igniter can use it a little bit in their burst. They can now just quickly cast it, let it hit, and do all the other stuff within Igniter, but like, it's whatever, cool. And then, for Igniter itself, the engraving, they just slapped on an additional 5% crit rate, which is great. This just makes Hallucination have even higher crit rate, and this makes Nightmare a little bit more consistent. So that's great. An overall damage increase, and I believe you can still play both Hallucination and Nightmare depending on whatever you want. So my overall thoughts about the balance patch. Yeah, pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. The only thing that I'm sad about is I wish there was more attention given to Reflux. This honestly makes me want to rebuild my Igniter, right? I have to just get the gems again and go from there. But, the copium inside me says that because Reflux got 0 attention in this patch, on the next patch, they're cooking some rework or something like that. Who knows, right? That's my hope, at least, anyway. But I think Igniter is in a much better spot in terms of quality of life. The second Doomsday thing still kind of sucks, but with all of the quality of life changes, you don't have to run reverse gravity anymore. Hopefully we'll still be able to do the boundless tech that we've been doing with reverse gravity for Nightmare Igniter, and we'll see where the class goes from there. Of course, patch notes can be changed and balance can always be tweaked, so let's see where this goes. And to all my Reflux players, let's hope that in the next balance patch, they finally rework us in some way, shape, or form where we're not always the laughingstock of the community. In any case, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.